Good afternoon, my respected teachers and my dear colleagues. I am Dr. Arnab from Sri Jayadeva Institute of Cardiovascular Sciences and Research. I am going to present a complication case, a crumpled stent in LMCA, a nightmare for cardiologists. My case was a 40 years old male patient, known smoker, with an old history of infavolemi in 2013. That time patient had triple vessel disease and primary PTCA to LCX was done in 2013. This time patient presented with acute antovolemi. Angiography was showing the distal LMCA had 80% stenosis and osteoproximal LAD has 90% stenosis, and there was 100% instant restenosis of proximal LCX stent, and RCA was also diffusely diseased. It is not shown in this angiographic picture. So the management plan was, first thing was patient was not feeling for CABG, and the poor distal targets was also a problem for CABG, and patient was having ongoing chest pain. So that's why PTCA to LMCA to LAD was planned. And patient was thrombolized just after admission, and it was a rescue PTCA after the angiography. So the strategy was 3 into 28 millimeter of Giants V stent, and it was deployed from LMCA to LAD after proper pre-dilatation, and post-dilatation was done using 3 into 10 millimeter of non-compliant balloon at 6 into 20 atmosphere. But after the LMCA to LAD stenting, the LAD was grown, and after that we identified that mid LAD is also having a lesion. It was a long lesion and it was significant, and patient was also having ongoing chest pain with significant ECG changes. So the next plan was to address that lesion. So PTCA to mid LAD was planned using 2.75 into 40 millimeter of Yukan choice flex stent. But the problem was when the second stent was being negotiated through the past stent, it was stuck inside. So we tried to push it, it was not going inside. Then we thought that we'll retrieve the stent, but it was not coming out. So it was stent stuck inside an LMCA stent. So at this point of time, if stent is there in LMCA, what are the theoretical options we have? First is the stent can be left in situ and gradually expanded with low profile to normal ballooning. But in our particular case, half of the stent was inside the catheter. So it was not an option for us. Second is small balloon technique, that is crossing the stent with a small balloon, and before that one wire should be passed, and inflating the balloon distally to the stent and retrieve the whole assembly. Third option is retrieval using two-wire technique, but for our case already one LMC to LAD stent was there and the second stent was stuck, so it was too risky for our case. Other options are like snaring with using gooseneck snare, or stent retrieval using basket device, or finally as a bailout crush technique using another stent LMCA. So we planned for the small balloon technique. So one second wire passed across the LAD and 1.5 into 10 millimeter balloon was inflated in LMCA to pull the assembly out, but it was unsuccessful. Then another larger balloon, 2.5 into 15 millimeter balloon was inflated at catheter tip to trap the stent wire, and the whole assembly was pulled back. So this is the final pullback. After that, the whole assembly including the second stent was removed from the coronary system and the body successfully. After that, immediately that mid-LAD lesion was pre-dilated using 2.5 into 10 millimeter of non-compliant balloon, semi-compliant balloon at 10 atmosphere. Then stenting was done using two overlapping stent, being distal one is 2.5 into 28 millimeter and proximal one is 2.75 into 15 millimeter Giants V, deployed at 12 atmosphere, and post-dilatation was done using 2.75 into 10 millimeter of non-compliant balloon at 20 atmosphere quickly. So after that, the distal flow was good, but another problem arises. After careful observation in fluoroscopy, we saw that actually that first stent, that was LMC to LAD stent, it was crumpled and ripped off, and the part of it is hanging in aorta. So that was our second nightmare. But fortunately, the flow was good in LAD and patient was hemodynamically stable. So now, as a bailout procedure, the LMCA stent was crushed with balloon, and final LMCA stenting was done with 3.5 into 15 millimeter of Giant V stent, and the post dilatation was done with 3 into 10 millimeter non-compliant balloon at 20 atmosphere. It is 3.5, sorry, 3.5 into 10 millimeter non-compliant balloon at 20 atmosphere. So this is the final result. So distal TME3 flow was good and patient was hemodynamically stable. There was no chest pain and the ECG was also settled. So the take-home message for our case is extra care should be taken for all LMC interventions. negotiating stent through stent is always risky. If at all done, adequate pre-dilatation is mandatory. Always distal vessel should be stented first before the proximal vessel. But the problem regarding our case was, before the first stenting, the distal vessel was not grown properly. So the second lesion was not visible in the initial angiogram. And strong nerve and cool brain saves life in cath lab. Thank you.